Welcome back to the Weekend Show. This is the lifestyle segment of the Weekend Show. And on today's episode, we will be discussing creating enabling environments for entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurship is widely understood as the process of starting and owning businesses that provide goods or services to people in exchange for money. In recent time, we've seen the informal sector grow so much, and with rising numbers of unemployment, a lot of people have ventured into entrepreneurship. But how easy is it for young Nigerians and even old Nigerians to be entrepreneurs? What is it actually to be an entrepreneur? Does it mean it's being a one-man business or actually providing goods and services which end up contributing to the economy? And to discuss this topic with me in the studio, I have with me Attah Samson, a friend, and he is also the CEO of AIIVON Innovation Hub. Welcome to the Weekend Show.
Thank you.
So I'm going to go straight to it. Do you call yourself an entrepreneur, first of all?
Yeah, I do, definitely.
What exactly does it mean to be an entrepreneur?
To be an entrepreneur literally is creating value that are what paying for, literally. So whatever you're doing that you're creating value that people are willing and ready to pay for, that's what literally makes you an entrepreneur. Taking business risk, getting into the market and doing stuff, literally.
So there's this idea, or should I say misconception, that entrepreneurship, or most times people who call themselves entrepreneurs now, are people who can get the regular 9 to 5 or the government job, and so they just start something small and then everybody's an entrepreneur. But I was going through this day newspaper yesterday, and I saw for their awards of the decade, and they wrote Entrepreneur of the Year, Dangote. And I was like, how do we draw the line from businessmen and entrepreneurs? Is there really a difference?
Okay, so first, not all entrepreneurs are people who can't get 9 to 5s. You find a number of people who resign from 9 to 5 to follow their dreams, to build businesses, build empires, and all that. So it's not exactly that. Then secondly, if you look at people like Dangote, yeah, he is an entrepreneur. He built something. He built the Dangote Group. He's doing business in sugar. He's doing business in cement and different areas, and he's taking major risk. Look at what he's doing with the refinery. And recently, he even announced that he's venturing into sport, making a bold statement that he wants to acquire the Arsenal Football Club in 2021.
He's going to be competing against Atiku for that. I know they're both Arsenal fans, aren't they?
Yeah, but I think Dangote will have a stronger hand in buying it because a good number of the Arsenal fans internationally would support his bid.
Okay, so in Nigeria, we've been talking a lot about diversifying the economy. Most times when we speak to entrepreneurs and say, what really is the problem? Like, what challenges do you face? The first thing everybody says is access to finance or funding. In your experience, what are the challenges, the most common challenges entrepreneurs face?
Yeah, I agree. Access to finance is one, but it's not the only problem. There are a number of other problems. One, as an entrepreneur, even if you don't have access to finance, you can build an IGR funded business strictly solely from your internally generated revenue. But in that case, you need the market to be solid. You need your customers to be able to afford your product at very reasonable pricing, and which is currently an issue in Nigeria with the whole recession and everything that happened, and we are still trying to recover. You find a lot of entrepreneurs complaining that it's either there is a lack of reasonable customer base, or they have a lot of customers that can't pay well for their services. And there are a number of other relevant support infrastructures that are really necessary that are yet to be put in place. We're still talking power. For those people that are in ICT, for instance, we are still talking the fact that they need to get a number of tax breaks and other incentives to push, because they are literally pioneering an industry in the country. So there is this huge gap between what the government is pushing, what the government is trying to give to entrepreneurs, and what these people are literally asking for. I've seen a number of government interventions where they organize events, give out money. There was Shopee, there's
There's you win at
Empower,
some
there's you
point.
win, you have Need That Does in Nigeria. Like there's a whole lot. But these people need more than money. Funds is important, but you need more than funds. You need the necessary training. If I think in the entrepreneurial circle, the most important thing here is the team. If the team is not solid, no matter how much money you put into it, no matter how solid the idea is, it's still going to sink. So what are the necessary things that we've put in place to support the team, to support the entrepreneur? We put in necessary training, capacity building platforms in place for them? Are we putting areas where we can provide protection for their ideas, for their businesses? I mean, not just people doing corporate business. If you go to agriculture, which is the area where our government tend to be focused on, you still have a lot of challenges there, especially in pricing. Earlier in 2019, there was like a major issue. I'm a farmer part-time, and we farmed beans. So a lot of farmers targeted the Salah market. And when the rains came earlier than usual and most people couldn't harvest before the Salah market, they were left with a lot of beans, and the price crashed from about 42,000 naira a bag of beans to less than 30,000, 20-something thousand naira a bag of beans within a month. That is not healthy in any economy. So so if you look at this, we're having issues from a policy angle, we're having issues from a lot of different areas. So there's a lot that the government needs to do to ensure that entrepreneurs can operate smoothly in this economy.
So most time when we talk about entrepreneurship, there's always the focus on government. What is government doing? What is government doing? But we also understand that most entrepreneurs, most startups, for instance, die within the first 3 years. And you mentioned about setting up the right team. And so what does it really take to set up the right team? Because like I said, a lot of people are accidental entrepreneurs where it's their plan B, something which they just happened to fall into. And so you spoke about building a team, and we will still talk about that, but it's also my pleasure to welcome to the lifestyle segment Mr. Omojo Wada, who is the CEO of Solohon and Co. Welcome to the Weekend Show.
Thank you very much.
So, Mr. Omojo, we're discussing entrepreneurship, and we're just talking about building a team and also creating the right and an enabling environment for startups and entrepreneurs.
Yes, please.
What do you feel is lacking in the space which hampers creativity and development in the entrepreneurship space?
All right. It's a pleasure to be on the show. First of all, I would say that one of the major problems that entrepreneurs face, especially young entrepreneurs like myself, will be number one, funding. Now, the problem of funding goes a very, very long way, you understand, because a lot of people have ideas. They have so many creative ideas, but the truth is they lack the fund to execute those ideas. And now I'm sure a lot of entrepreneurs or a lot of people will say, oh, you don't need funding to start a business. You know, funding is the last thing. But trust me, it's all about funding.
So, but I'm a firm believer in bootstrapping, starting with the little which you have, starting with your immediate network.
Yeah.
And so I want to disagree with you about just funding, because it's one thing to have an idea, it's another thing to start and then to show this is what you are doing. So besides funding, what really...
All right. Of course, funding is, I won't say funding is the major, you understand? Because there are obviously some businesses that you can start without funding. You can go into event planning without funding. All you need to do is, create a profile for yourself. Instagram is free, you understand? Try and push yourself out. Now, if you're able to get your first gig, take for example, someone is having his birthday or wedding. These guys are literally sponsoring the entire event, so a dime is not coming out of your pocket. So, and that's a business that you can actually go into without, so much capital or zero capital. You understand? And other businesses that involves basically rendering services. You understand? Services like, take for example, Airbnb consultant. You understand? So you literally meet people that own apartments, and you tell them, oh, I can put out your apartment to let, you understand, on all these online platforms, and people contact you, you get a commission from that. That kind of business too doesn't need funding. But when we look at it as an entrepreneur in the real sense, you understand, like take for example for myself, before I started my business, so I had this amazing idea. There was literally no company selling wigs and gowns online. That's in the entire Africa. So I saw an opportunity, and the next thing I needed was funding. Why? Because I need to create a website. I don't know how a website is operated. I don't know, I read law, I'm a lawyer, so I literally don't know how all this tech thing work. So next thing I have to look for funding to create the first website. And, so what I did then was, I started with the little I had. I literally sold my MacBook. That was in 2015, and a couple of other things. I put up money together,
So did you do this all by yourself, or did you call a couple of friends or have a couple of partners and say, let's do this together?
In all honesty, I started all by myself, and I started really small, very, very small. And I feel the problem a lot of entrepreneurs face these days is starting at all. They feel like, because I don't have $1 million, because I don't have 2 million. I started my business with 600,000 naira. And today, the business has made more than $500,000. You understand? So the truth is, a lot of people feel like, I need to have this sort of money before I go into this type of business. But the truth is, you really just need to start with the little you have. And as long as you're consistent, as long as you have the necessary ingredients like integrity, as long as, you can offer quality service, if someone is paying an amount and is getting a premium product and a quality product, you understand, your product will sell for itself, and that's it.
Okay, just to bring Samson back in, we're talking about building a team. What should entrepreneurs look out for when they build a team? Because I do understand that most people who invest, especially in the tech space, they want to see what your team is made up of, besides your business plan, amongst others. But what should entrepreneurs look for when building a team? And is it important for people to work with a team or just have solo efforts?
Okay, so I'm just going to draw in from what you guys have said. One is, funding is important, but like I said before, it's not the most important part. The most important element there is actually the team. Every day, even currently, we have like up to 6, 7 different organizations asking us for startups that we don't have. So on one end, we have startups, we have entrepreneurs telling us that we have businesses, we don't have funds, we're looking for funding. And on another hand, we have both international organizations and local equity investors asking us for startups. So we have a lot of businesses, we have a lot of entrepreneurs, but the way that their business has been structured makes them completely uninvestable. So building a team is first having a solid structure beyond yourself, building a system that can run independent of you. One of the things that I always encourage business or startups to do when you have an idea, when you're thinking about it, talk to a professional. There are a lot of mistakes that you can make at the beginning that becomes difficult to correct as you go. So first thing if it's a tech venture, first thing we always push for is you have a solid tech guy in the team. You don't need to have a lot of money. Like you say, you needed a website. You can get the solid tech guy on board through partnership. Whatever you guys agree, whatever you're giving him, it could be equity, it could be sales up to a particular ceiling, etc. is entirely up to you. So that's one. There have to be the tech guy. There have to be the finance guy who is doing the business development, packaging all the proposals, who is able to pitch the business, sell it, etc. And then there have to be the very critical guy that's got eye for detail. He's like the guy who runs the operations, who makes sure that the business, because even if it's an online business, if the offline part of the business don't function well, the business is still going to crash. So it's always important to have these 3 key elements: someone who is really vast and understands finance, someone who knows the trade. If it's tech, someone who's vast in tech. If it's agro, someone who is experienced in the agro sector you're looking at. If it's logistic, a logistic guy. So someone who knows the core business and someone who can handle operations, delegate management, and all of that smoothly. So these 3 things, you can't take it out of any business. And I've said it before, a solid team will excel faster at a crappy idea than a weak team with an amazing idea. The team will mess the idea up, but a crappy team will improve that crappy idea, take bits and chunks out of it, and eventually refine it into something entirely unique and new, and they will go ahead to make that idea work.
So I get that, and thank you for that. But Omojo, I also noticed lately, most people, when they think entrepreneurship and startups, everybody is looking at tech. Yes, technology is here to stay, and it will always be here. But what other sectors do you feel Nigerians, when we talk about diversification, what other sectors do you think we can play in locally and produce and have products which we can sell globally?
I think one of the important sectors that is actually picking up gradually will be the manufacturing sector. You understand? You see a lot of entrepreneurs going into manufacturing now, starting from body, lotions, creams, herbal medicine. Like once you go on the internet these days, all you see is herbal. I'm like, okay, are these companies making so much? Because these companies actually spend a lot on advertising. You understand? They do different types of promo, you know, to promote their brand, and you see that the manufacturing industry is actually coming up a lot. And I feel the best time to start up that kind of company is now, because the truth is we don't have too many laws restricting, you know, establishments of manufacturing companies, and that's because, you know, take for example, you know, some of these herbal things that people are selling these days. You literally can start that kind of company in the United States without going through so many, you know, accreditations. But these days, you can, with Nigeria, what you just need to do is, you know, meet a couple of bodies, you know, get NAFDAC to come on board, get SON, and just a few other organizations. But the truth is, you know, this is very realistic, and it's something that can be done. You know, aside manufacturing, I feel like the event planning business is going a long way as well. It's picking up gradually, and you know, the market is so big. You know, we start taking it from photography to, you know, makeup to decoration to venue, cakes, you know, etc. There's so many aspects in event planning, and event planning is something that is here to stay. You know, 200 years from now, there's still going to be weddings.
There's always one Owambe.
There's still going to be a celebration. So an event planning business is something that is never too late to go into. Why? Because, I mean, there are over 200 million people in Nigeria. Someone is getting married. Someone is doing a bridal shower. Someone is doing a naming. There's always something to do.
You know what? So I hear this a lot when I see entrepreneurs try to pitch. Everybody's like, oh, you know, we have 200 million Nigerians, and so if you can target 1 million and you sell like at 1,000 naira, you're already making XYZ, or you target 10 million. But I read last year, for instance, Netflix, we're saying bring Netflix to Nigeria, bring Netflix. Yeah. Netflix has been in Nigeria, and they have just about 50,000 subscribers in the whole country. Very and when you see the pricing, it's about 3,000 naira and 3,400 for the family plan. So they have cheaper, exactly, options. But pricing remains a problem for some people who have the privilege of shopping from outside the country, online, just like your business, the likes of ASOS, amongst others. And then you have Nigerian businesses, for instance, in the fashion industry. Sometimes it could cost me, the money it would cost me to buy a suit by some Nigerian designers, I can use that same money to buy 3 others from another country. Okay, let's hear Samson, then I'll hear you. Pricing, do you feel sometimes we shoot ourselves in the foot with our pricing?
Yeah, so pricing, in coming up with pricing, you have to look at other factors. You just mentioned that Netflix is 3,000 naira a month or 3,000 plus a month. But that's not what you're paying. That's not all you're paying for Netflix. You have to get a solid data plan to run Netflix, and that's not cheap. So by the time you put all, so it still boils back to what we're talking about here, creating an enabling environment. And this is affecting not just Netflix, but a lot of tech businesses. Today in Nigeria, broadband penetration in Nigeria is still less than 30%. If you hear the exact numbers, like what's actually obtainable on the field, you'll be amazed that, like, we're talking about the digital age here, what happened to Nigeria. So one, the 200 population, 200 million people we're talking about here, maybe only about 30 million of them can access the kind of internet that is needed for Netflix. That's one. Then you now drop that number. Maybe out of that 30 million, only about 15% of that 30 million can actually, no, they were talking pricing, yes, still, can actually afford to pay an extra 20,000 because the cheapest unlimited data plan is actually 18.5 Intel. That's the cheapest. This is not advert, but that's the cheapest. And so by the time you join just data, we're not talking power yet, just data and subscription, you've crossed 20,000 naira. At that point, Netflix is no longer cheap. How much is minimum wage? You still have to pay your light bills. You still have to pay. So when you check all the different things that are that the customer you're targeting have to do before you adjust. So the pricing is not just about what you're charging for your product, is what they can afford to spare after all the other things they need to have in place to use your product. And that's why I always emphasize a very detailed customer profiling. Don't tell me there are 200 million people in Nigeria. Tell me the 5,000, tell me the 30,000 people that you've done. Show us clearly how you arrived at that number. And show us how detailed your profiling metrics are, that, and convince us that that 20,000 million or 20,000 people will definitely patronize you because of X, Y, Z.
Let's hear from Omojo.
All right. So talking about numbers, yeah, the truth is, the 200 million per se is, what a lot of people just use to calculate the general number of potential market that is there. But I mean, if you're looking into a business like, like agriculture, I mean, that means you take, for example, you're into rice production.
Yeah.
You probably be attending to the needs of a majority of that number, and take other businesses as well, like maybe, some cement factory and all that. But the truth is, coming to pricing, I feel like most Nigerian entrepreneurs still have, a very serious challenge. And the truth is, you go to a Zara store, and you're trying to buy a shoe. Now, and you find out the shoe is about $90 to $150.
Okay.
And then, you go to a Nigerian store, and then you find out that a shoe, something similar, it's probably about $250.
Yeah.
And now we're talking about an international brand here and a local brand that is trying to go international. Now, the truth is, a lot of Nigerians want to make the money so quick, and they forget the fact that they're supposed to, they're supposed to work on their service, on their name, and their quality. You understand? Because I like to buy Nigerian, and I've shopped from a lot of Nigerian, take for example, shoe producers. And I literally wear this shoe for like, a week and it's gone. You understand? And that keeps happening, a Nigerian tailor will probably want to charge, $500, $1,000, $2,000. Literally charge the same thing that they're charging on Savio Row for, a made in Nigeria suit. I understand that a lot of factors go into this, fabric and all that. But the truth is, if you're trying to go international, always try as much as possible to make sure that your prices are very competitive, because that's the only way that you can be able to tackle the international market. Now, I like to talk about the shoe business because
I was waiting for somebody to say that because
I've gone into the shoe business myself. I was into the shoe business in about 2008, 2009, and I was literally producing these shoes for about 2,500, and the profit I was putting on it was about 1,500, 2,000 naira. I was selling them for 4,500, 5,000 naira. And, I was okay with the profit. But the truth is, a lot of entrepreneurs, they want to see big numbers in their accounts. So they produce a shoe for 5,000. Next thing, they want to sell it for 25,000. Why? Because it has a box, a fancy box, and it has a shoe case and all that. You understand?
Omojo, sorry to cut you short.
Yes.
I can argue on the side of entrepreneurs in the sense that, so for instance, for the last 2 days, I've had, maybe 10 hours of power supply. Okay. And so these Nigerian manufacturers and entrepreneurs are having to spend extra money on diesel or fuel for their generators. The road network sometimes may not necessarily be the best. A couple of businesses, like logistic business in Lagos, have said, for instance, for you to run a logistic business in Lagos with bikes, you need about 30 licenses. And the current administration has been saying a lot on ease of doing business and enabling businesses. And so if I need about 30 business licenses to have a motorbike on the road delivering goods from one place to another, if power supply is still an issue, and then we still have road network, for instance, for people in the agro business, Samson, what do you think government should do to actually give us this ease of doing business, which we've been hearing about? Final words.
Okay. Like I said, we have to still go back to some of our policies. Some of the policies we have in place are not favorable at all. And the rate at which these policies are changing as well is not cool. You plan your business based on what you've seen. Like, for instance, the new government come to power, you make your plans based on what they're telling you, and maybe you plan for 5 years. Within a year or two, what they are telling you starts to change. And you're like, but I've invested a lot of money in these plans because this is the direction you said you were going. And so the government needs to, one, be consistent, and also come up with policies and ventures that will help. There are a number of, I've been in a lot of conversations with NCC, NITDA, a number of other bodies that are putting together these dialogues to see how they can improve the ecosystem, see what things they need to put in place. But at the end of it, these things stop at conversations. We're not seeing them come to market. We're not seeing it. And so it's an issue. It's the major issue. And then there is the pricing. Most times, because of all the different things you have to, like you mentioned power, you mentioned logistics and all that you have to do to be able to get your product to market, you realize that if you're going to put a number on each of those things, you've already priced your customer out. So at the end of the day, it still goes back to client profiling. Understand what you're doing in the industry, the customer that you can make the most profit or have the most impact on as a business. And cheap is not always king when it comes to pricing. Cheap is not always king. There are some businesses that will go faster, will excel faster, will do better if the pricing is not cheap. So when it comes to pricing, you can't put any number, you can't even discuss pricing without a proper and detailed customer client segment profiling.
Okay, gentlemen, I think that's a great place to put it. And just like you've rightly said, entrepreneurs as well should go beyond just waiting for government, but they should consider their structure, building their team, the right pricing. But it's still important that while the government talks about ease of doing business and try to make things better, for instance, the new finance bill, which has been signed into law, has given a couple of tax reliefs to companies earning below a certain benchmark, which should be able to help. But it's important that while entrepreneurs are trying to create their own businesses, government still has a role to play. Don't go away. The Weekend Show will be back with sports and social media segment.